All right, welcome back for the next section of the diagnostic criteria under the identity problem with self-functioning heading. So let's just dive right into it. They go from thinking they're the best to thinking they're trash in a snap. Narcissists believe that they are exceptional. It doesn't matter if that exception is positive or negative. They all believe they are rare or special in some way. My hypothesis suggests that they feel intimately connected with the universe as if they have direct access to Plato's forms. Plato posited that there is a realm in which the perfect versions of every concept exist. A popular example is triangleness. It's reasonable to assume that you know what a triangle is if you are reading this book. If you drew a triangle freehand, it would embody triangleness, but it would not be a perfect representation of the idea of a triangle as defined as a plane, two-dimensional figure with three sides whose interior angles add up to 180 degrees. Your sides wouldn't be perfectly straight. Your angles wouldn't add up to 180 degrees. If you measured the sides, they wouldn't match the lengths demanded by Euclidean geometry, etc. Right? It wouldn't be perfect. It would never be perfect, even if you used straight edges and the finest pencils and pens. Right? Your drawn triangle would never be perfect triangles. Okay, this sense that they have that they are tapped into the perfections of the universe is a distorted way of experiencing themselves. It's a delusion. Every individual human being, in the capacity of being a human being, is a unique set of characteristics. One could be exceptional for being the only person ever who hates coffee, loves anime, thinks mongooses make the greatest pets, and had to watch the movie Thanksgiving 100 times before they embraced the fact that it's an absurd cinematic masterpiece. It's not, but feel free to decide for yourself, right? So what I mean here too is all of those qualities combined, right? One could be exceptional just for being the only person who's ever lived who hates coffee, loves anime, thinks mongooses make the greatest pets, and had to watch the movie Thanksgiving 100 times before they embrace the fact that it's an absurd cinematic masterpiece, right? Everybody is exceptional because they're fucking unique. But that's where the buck stops. This idea that you're like tapped into the mysteries of the divine is weird. Okay. But as I made in the previous episode, this is kind of part of why I brought up my, like, I guess you could say religious perspective. I feel like it's more of like it's not a spiritually religious perspective, it's a scholarly religious perspective. Like, I don't think that people were as sky daddy oriented as we give them credit for being. Okay, so what I'm saying here, right, is that their God, right, their subconscious mind functions in such a way that it's as if it is cocksure that it is dialed in the driver's seat of an entity of the great beyond. Like they fully, wholeheartedly, with every fiber of their mind and being, believe that they are accurately tracking reality. Okay, so like if you were to think of it too just in a philosophical perspective, right, they would completely reject the skeptical argument, right, that we can't believe our senses or know that we're here right now. They not only are fully embracing that this reality is kind of like it's all there is, they really deeply just understand it, right? This is their jam, right? They're the seeds in the raspberry jam that is our universe, right? They've got it, okay? I want to make it clear that I am not saying that narcissists are aware of this, right? So that's this distinction between quote unquote God and quote unquote the Lord being your subconscious and conscious minds, right? Narcissists aren't consciously aware that they have this deep seated confidence. A narcissist would not tell you outright that they know blue is the best color. All I'm saying is that they interact with other people as if this is what they believe, but that belief need not be conscious to be effective. Take, for example, someone who is red-green colorblind. When they eat peas and carrots, they know the peas are round and the carrots are cute, but the mixture appears uniform in color, let's just say for the sake of argument, because it's not going to be, but like let's just keep it loose, right? Okay. So they know that the peas are round and the carrots are cubed, but the mixture probably appear at least close to uniform in color. Similarly, narcissists perceive that they are interacting rationally, reasonably, and just like everybody else. But this one little tweak to their perception causes them to be abrasive in ways that give rise to problems in interpersonal relationships. This is also kind of like a curse of knowledge problem, where like that once you know something, it's kind of hard to imagine that other people don't know it, right? So, which I said to like going back to like this whole conspiracy theory element. If she's thinking I don't need context in order to understand the story about her grandpa, she doesn't understand that I don't have the actual necessary context. She's wrong to think that there isn't a need for context. Okay, I had to plug it in charge because once my phone got below, yeah, you probably saw it pop up in the previous video, huh? Yeah, the 20% low power mode. Yeah, so anyway, I had to plug in and do all the things. Anywho, whatever it was that I was saying, right? If okay, yeah, so we were here, right? If I gave you an envelope, and inside that envelope were the login credentials to a secret, like let's say, okay, so back in the day when I was in college, right? I think I've mentioned this, at least I mentioned it in light traffic because it's an easy reference around. Like I said, making the same references multiple times is not out of pocket, right? Okay, so anyway, um, it was called KS Underground, and it was kind of like a Facebook. It was a bulletin board, a message board. So think of it like a Reddit or a Facebook for people to discuss like parties and different things going on around the Manhattan area for K-State students and whatnot. And in order to join the site, you had to have somebody who was already a member vouch for you and give you a code that was like a it was a verification code that then would allow you to create an account. Okay, so anyway, it's kind of like getting an Hermes Birkin bag, right? That you have to already have one in order to get more. I don't know. Anyway, but the point being, right? Someone who was already a member of the site had to invite you to it and give you an authentication code to be able to make an account, right? And on this site, if you were to join, you would be privy to the conversation and the story that would be the context for understanding the Grandpa Joe, right? If she thought she gave, this is going to get real irritating real fast. All right, anyway, if you thought, right, that you were the person who literally personally handed the envelope to you with the authentication credentials in it, how in the hell do you not, like, didn't you join? I watched you join. That's supposedly you. I didn't invite, like, let's say, like, on the back end, you know when someone has used your code, right? So then, and it's like, so she might have wholeheartedly believed that somewhere along the way, somebody stole the envelope from me before I could open it. Is it like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, but like I said, like, to me, I know I don't have context, right? For some reason, she's cocksure I have context, right? But I don't, right? And I don't know why she thinks I do, right? Because I don't. It's kind of funny. It's like thinking about, like, here's a weird philosophical thought experiment. Can you think about things that you've never heard of before, right? It's kind of weird, right? And I don't mean things like coming up with the same idea, like, man, you know what would be a great movie? Like, what if there was like a fish that got lost and then his dad went looking for him, and then somebody's like, that's Finding Nemo, right? That's not what I mean. I mean, like, it would be like I can't actually be thinking about stuff being said on a website that I'm not a member of, right? And so now I guess what they called that was the can you know that you know if you don't know that you know, like that sort of like philosophical principle for epistemology, right? Knowing that you know something, and like now we're getting into the skeptical argument and just getting way more philosophical than I want it to. But hopefully, if anybody ever listens to that, like you get what I'm saying, though, right? That it's like I don't know how you can't figure out. Right? 6 times I've told you that story doesn't make any sense, and 6 times you've insisted that it should be hilarious. Why would I be fucking with you? Right? I am not the person that used your authentication code to create an account on the website. That's it, right? I mean, it's like that's the end. It's the end of the story. But instead, she's deciding to bite my head off about it when like that she's aggravated with me over something I've never heard of before. Okay. Now, but all of it, all I'm saying, like now back to reality, right? Out of this conspiracy fantasy realm and back to reality, right? Leaving the Twilight Zone, let's just call it that, right? In the Twilight Zone. Anyway, narcissists perceive their relationships to be uniform in color, but what they can't grasp is that they are a rigid cube that's poking and denting all of the soft, round people. Narcissists think that claiming that they are normal because they feel normal makes them normal. This is precisely the self justification delusion. And anyone who doesn't think they are normal is the one who is abnormal, not them, because they feel fine. This infuriates P's who knows that they are calling a carrot a carrot, right? The P's can see that you're square, but because you think that the relevant attribute is color, you don't understand that when the P's are telling you that you are different fundamentally, right? You can't see it because you think we're all brown, right? So that's when it's like that when you don't, right, going back to the Twilight Zone, if you are convinced that I'm at the party and I'm standing here at the party telling you that your story isn't funny. You genuinely cannot understand how I don't think it's funny. But I'm not like that because if I don't find the story funny, then I'm not. This is going to get real tedious real quick if I keep going off on that tangent. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse again, so moving right along. I just want to reiterate this too that my life is incredibly frustrating as a result of whatever the fuck this is. And I similarly feel like I'm perfectly normal. I don't feel like I have any extraneous things that would make me or should be giving me the idea that I am involved in something that would be giving me this problem, which would be kind of that would be why it would have made sense at some point to just leave me in the dark. Because it's like the only way for me to stay grounded in reality is to actually be living in it, right? So, like, the only way for me to be sure that I'm a pea is to stay in the bag of frozen peas and never get mixed into the dish of peas and carrots. I just can't even actually be involved in this fight unless the carrots bring that smoke to my doorstep. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's the problem is that carrots keep trying to talk to you about the mixture and you aren't in the mixture. Right? So I don't know. I feel like that's a weird metaphor, but whatever. I'm going with it. The irony is that even other carrots can tell they are a carrot, but not see that they are carrots themselves either. Can you imagine the relationship between two full-blown narcissists? Probably not. It's likely a train that would never leave the station. They would repel each other like oil and water. Good luck convincing water it's not the oil, and vice versa. Case in point one. She would declare that she found herself to be just average looking, but her behavior seemed to indicate otherwise. For what it's worth, she was definitely better than average looking by anyone's standards. Self-deprecating shots are like hooks with no bait, though. If you want to think you're just average, knock yourself out. I really wish that I could tell you there is a celebrity that she looks exactly like. Like, I mean, to if I wanted to out who I'm talking about, I could just say she looks exactly like dot dot dot, and everyone who's ever known us would know exactly who the fuck I'm talking about. Like it's almost like fucking uncanny. So I'll pick another select. Like you could pretty much pick any. All right, I'm gonna just have to suck it up and do it because I can't take this anymore. I can't go on my rants because when I go on my rants, I stop looking at the screen. That's how this keeps happening. So anyway, as I was saying, right, this girl is gorgeous, right? So it's like if you were to ask, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 of attractiveness, and and like let's say like I say 7, and she'd be like, I'm average, right? Like that never happened, but I'm just saying like that she would tell us I'm like I'm only average looking. And so it's like, this girl is either like irrationally digging for compliments, or she has an extremely deprecating distortion of her perception of herself. Or going into the Twilight Zone, she's not talking about outward appearance, right? Like if she was meaning something along the lines of, I am perceiving the world through the lens of a person grounded in reality, right? That what she's trying to get me to understand is that she is grounded in reality. I don't have any access to the fucking Twilight Zone, right? So like I can't even parse that that is what she's trying to say. Now, I'll give you here's a story, right? When I was growing up, there was a point in which um, my mother, right, because like I'm an overweight person, I've been overweight literally my entire life, okay? And when I was a teenager, my mom kind of tearfully said to me that no man would ever love me the way I look, and which I thought was just absurd, right? Because like I'm overweight, but I'm not. I'm like, dude, like fat bitches get married all the time. Like, what are you talking about, right? It didn't make any sense. And the only way that I could ever make it make sense, and now especially in light of the way that my life has gone, is that she was talking about because of what I was being forced into. If what I'm supposed to be doing with my life is observing and talking about all of the bullshit that surrounds us, to the point where I'm not going to be free from this bullshit until I'm too old to have kids, then yeah, it kind of makes sense to say, like, no man will ever love you the way you look, because it's like I have to be out here on the street lonely and homeless. Why in the fuck would some guy want to be in a relationship with that? Right? But when I was 16, I still don't have any fucking idea. Like that's just me giving my mom the benefit of the doubt that she's not a complete bitch, right? That I have to jump through semantic hoops in order to understand what these people are saying to me. Um, so if I use that same lens of why this chick was always talking about, like, I'm average looking, she doesn't mean her appearance, right? I'm telling y'all, like, objectively, it would be absurd for anyone to rate this girl below an 8. You would have to be someone who was literally capable of pulling Superman. Like, no one is going to say she's average looking, okay? That being said, the sad thing too is that she's even in a meme that has circulated enough that I could Google it right now and show it to you, okay? The woman is good looking, okay? There's no bones about this, okay? So that all being said, right? If what she meant was, I am, I'm just a normal, everyday, average person in the world, observing what's going on. I don't have the context with which to decipher that message. I am going to just come right out and say, I am 100%, I'm 99.98% sure this bitch was using my fucking credentials. And I'm going to leave it at that for now and move on because I'm still hungry and now I got to pee too. So let's get through this. All right. Case in point one, she would declare that she found herself to be just average looking, but her behavior seemed to indicate otherwise. For what it's worth, she was definitely better than average looking by anyone's standards. Self deprecating shots are like hooks with no bait, though. If you want to think you're just average, knock yourself out. That's a you problem, and that's to all you beautiful bitches and bows. So one night, she and I went out along with one of my other female friends. We were on our way to a popular bar when we walked past a group of men. Damn, she's hot. The brunette? No, she's the brunette, by the way. Okay, right? So they're like his friend, like, the brunette? No, the blonde in yellow. Me, the blonde in yellow. Her, the brunette. My friend, a redhead, the one who told me later that if looks could kill, I would have been reduced to ash. God, this is such a core memory for me. Okay. There's a meme that went low-key viral about a decade ago that features a picture of her that I'm fairly certain she made herself, right? I just mentioned it to you, but by the way, I'm pretty sure she made it herself. But still, my point was just that I could literally show you her right now if I wanted to. Or that there's even a possibility that if you're listening to this, you might have seen it. Okay, anyway, that being said, I'm not going to tell you what it is. Just know that it describes her as a goddess, but paints her in a light that she doesn't actually fit. Soon you will read about her "I'm such a nerd, I won a beauty contest" bit. The tagline of the meme is similarly contradictory in that it is both self-deprecating and grandiose. Don't get me wrong, it's a great meme. It makes sense when taken as coming from someone else. I just happen to know well enough what slash who is really behind it. I know the picture was taken in her own apartment that she was living in at the time that the meme then appeared. Does that make sense? So, like, or like at the time that it would have been made. Um, so here's how I even was introduced to it. Remember, like back like 10, 15 years ago when listicles were really popular? It was used in a listicle of like top 10 memes about nerdy things or something like that. And it was in there. And I remembered like when it popped up, I was like, oh, that's fucking hilarious. It's like, that's my roommate, right? That's my former roommate and stuff. So anyway, that's how I've even seen it. So like I know it's a known meme, or at least have reason to believe or suspect that it's a relatively well known meme. I wouldn't say it's not like as recognizable as like Ermagerd, Burks, right, or anything like that, right? But it's not. But it's in a list of top tens along with that meme, right? It's like it's out there, okay? So but I also, like I said, I recognize the room that she's in as being a room in the apartment she was living in before. It wasn't ours, but it was definitely like the one she lived in prior to. All right. So anyway, so I'm like waiting for. I'm pretty sure my mic isn't picking up the siren, but just in case. Okay, so like I said, it makes sense when taken as coming from someone else. Like if someone had taken a picture of you and used it to make this meme, it would make sense. But doing it yourself is just jerking yourself off, right? When coupled with coming from exactly the person pictured, it is the definition of vacillating between extremes. It's incredibly dissonant. Case in point two. He fancied himself a legal eagle and as a result was very litigious. He called himself a paralegal pro se litigant, tried to convince me that he was a legal researcher who did not only work who did work not only for a law firm, but also for the state with respect to an incredibly high profile case, and filed the following complaints himself. Something against the state tax office. I can't remember the details, but it's the case he droned on and on about to me the night we met. So, like, if you listen to Light Traffic, it's mentioned in there from the night we met. He tried to sue the SNAP office because he didn't get his food stamps. He hadn't returned his recertification paperwork on time and was embarrassed at the grocery store when his card was declined with a cart full of groceries. He tried to sue them for some ridiculous sum of money. Groceries. What a strange word, groceries. Does anybody even use that word anymore? Groceries. Anyway, speaking of fucking narcissistic jackasses, I honestly don't think Donald Trump is narcissistic at all. I think he's actually just a spoiled brat who's actually just out of touch with the common man. Like he's psychologically like he's tantamount to her claiming that she's only average looking, right? Is oblivious to how um, comfortable he is, and has been his entire life. So anyway, but all that being said, he tried to sue them for some ridiculous sum of money. He tried to sue the city because he tripped over a crack in a sidewalk that was caused by a very obvious tree growing along the sidewalk. He scraped his elbow and then demanded $25,000 for pain and suffering. He tried to sue Facebook because there was a business page that had his address listed as their address. He claimed it was rooted in the Cambridge Analytica scandal and sought a real attorney so he could sue Facebook for millions of dollars. He thought Facebook owed business taxes to the state of Hawaii because Mark Zuckerberg owns a house on Kauai. He attended that was a phone conversation he was having with somebody one day that I overheard, and I was just like, Like, thank goodness I was in my little corner and kind of hidden because I was literally biting my lip to not laugh out loud. Like, it was so, he was adamant because Mark Zuckerberg owns a house on Hawaii. Facebook owns business taxes to the state of Hawaii. He attempted to pursue legal action about this despite just being a random jackass living in public housing, like just some random person who happens to use Facebook all day long and live in Hawaii. And he really tried to see an attorney, like no one, like if that were actually true, the state itself would have figured that out by now. I mean, just an obliviously elevated sense of self. Okay, he had been evicted twice from previous rentals. In one of the cases, public record, he retained an attorney, but after documents from the state-funded hospital, medical, not mental, were admitted, his lawyer quit and he had to complete the case representing himself. Unfortunately, the public records are too vague to ascertain what exactly went down. At least when looking online, I think you could probably go to public records and get everything. But when you look, all you get is kind of like the surface level, like what the different documents and stuff that were filed with the court were. So that's the brass tacks of it all, though, right? I'm sure you'll be surprised to learn that he did not win a single one of these cases. This did not stop him from asking me if I wanted him to take care of my unemployment claim for me. He, in all seriousness, looked me dead in the eye and sincerely asserted that he could represent me, almost with a sense of pressuring me to allow him to do so. No, thanks, I can handle it myself. You sure? His condescending compassion was almost hilarious. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, if you change your mind, I won't. Fuck off until you can't fuck off anymore, and then fuck off some more. How someone could be so evidently incapable of something while remaining confident that they were competent was astounding. One day he received notice that he had been selected for jury duty. He couldn't figure out what he needed to do from the letter. Go to the website and fill out the form. That was it. It was very, very clearly, and I think even in larger type and bolded, was articulate. There was like all the, the legalese and the fine print and the stuff in the letter, but it was like made very clear that like you need to go to this website and sign in and respond to this notice to jury duty. He couldn't figure out what he needed to do from the letter. Go to the website and fill out the form. That was it. When he couldn't wrap his head around it, he said he would just ignore it. I had to tell this Perry Mason wannabe that he couldn't ignore a jury summons. He was fully aware that he wouldn't be able to serve because he was too hard of hearing to be able to keep up with a trial. This self-awareness honestly blew me away, not just in the capacity of self-awareness, but in conjunction with the admittance of incompetence. As someone with whom he had gotten into several arguments with on the grounds that he thought he could hear me when he clearly couldn't, it was damn near insulting that he is now. I don't know what's going on there. It was damn near insulting that he was now admitting that he couldn't hear shit well enough to sit on a jury. You can't hear well enough to converse with people 3 feet away from your face. Right? I had to type the website address in for him to access the form, which he was able to fill out himself. Sometimes I got the impression that he acted helpless just to bother me to help him for the attention and to massage his sense of entitlement. The disparity of vexatious paralegal pro se litigant who can't handle a jury summons is another example of self-assessment vacillating between extremes. It's also, though, first, so on the one hand, right, there's this idea that he's subconsciously inclined to believe he's competent regardless of external evidence. But in the moment, he's consciously aware, oh, I can't hear enough to keep up with a trial. I would never be able to sit on a jury. You can also translate it to the Twilight Zone and think that every time that he was arguing with me that seemed like he can't even hear what I'm saying, he could hear me, but he thought we were talking about something else when we weren't talking about anything other than whatever it was we were apparently talking about in plain natural English, right? If I think we're talking about whether we should have stir fry or spaghetti for dinner, and he's thinking he's asking me if he should log on later tonight into the game because they're going to have a surprise challenge for money or whatever the hell the Twilight Zone even was, right? I don't know what was going on at this website or behind my back, whatever the fuck it is, right? I don't know what's going on, right? If he thinks that by asking me, should we have spaghetti or stir fry for dinner, he's asking me, should I play poker or blackjack tonight? And I've never heard of the casino before. I think he's asking about spaghetti or stir fry. So when I say, personally, I'd rather have spaghetti tonight. Do you want garlic bread? And then he says back to me, but if we don't have stir fry, I'll have to go to the store to buy milk. And I say, what? You don't make any fucking sense. And then he gets angry with it. I'm like, I don't think you heard me. I don't want to have stir fry. I said spaghetti. And he's like, I can hear you just fine. Keep your voice down. I'm just saying that if we have stir fry, I'd have to go to the store to buy milk. And now I want to know what milk has to do with stir fry. And he'd roll his eyes like she's like, you don't fucking understand anything. And he'd get frustrated with me. And I'm sitting over here thinking, this asshole thinks I'm gonna cook him spaghetti tonight. He gonna be lucky if I don't put any fucking like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm sitting over here thinking like, do I need to like fucking I won't even say it. You know where I'm going with this, right? Where that it's like I'm at a point where I want to get out of this situation, and this is starting to look a little bit more drastic and dire every day. This man needs to stop trying me when I'm the one in charge of serving him meals. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh my gosh. So, all that being said, that's the end of this one. This is being very therapeutic. I'm glad I could finally get back into doing this because the weather is cooperating. But I think that's going to have to be it for today because I got to move on and handle all my other business. So until next time, bye.